Now, I'm not going fishing, but our guest today certainly is. Jason Matity will be hosting a Learn to Fish seminar at Douglas Park on Lake Diefenbaker tomorrow. Then he's going to hold two seminars on summer techniques, one at Cabela's in Saskatoon next Saturday, the 20th, and at Cabela's in Regina on Sunday, August 21st. Jason is part of Matitysgetfishing. He dropped by last month to talk fishing on Blue Sky, and we got so many calls and emails, we decided to do it again. So if you have a question about fishing techniques or gadgets, you can give us a call right now. It's 1-800-716-2221. You could email Blue Sky at cbc.ca. You could also tweet us. We're at Blue Sky CBC. And if you've got a story about fishing, we want to hear that too. So you can give us a call right now at 1-800-716-2221 or email Blue Sky at cbc.ca. Hi, Jason.
How you doing, Gareth?
I'm pretty well, thanks. How are you?
I'm fantastic. I really appreciate you having me come back, and it's clearly my favorite topic on the planet to talk about. So I think we can probably fill the time quite easily.
With all these seminars coming up the next couple of weeks, are you going to get a chance to do some fishing?
Well, actually, that's it's kind of a catch-22, really. When we're teaching and we're doing seminars, we don't actually get out on the water as much. But I think what's really neat about doing the Learn to Fishes and also the seminars is we get to learn a lot from the folks in attendance. They tell us about their little quirks or different techniques, and we really get to meet a lot of fine folks and discuss various techniques of how we attack the fish out there. So it's a lot of fun.
What do you get the most joy out of, fishing yourself or helping others?
I've really noticed, because we did a first set of Learn to Fish seminars back in July, and I'm really starting to appreciate the teaching part a lot, especially, we had a few new Canadians out, and we had, some young folks out, some older folks wanting to refine their techniques. And when I saw the diversity in the group, Garth, from old to young and folks from different backgrounds, it is a real unifier, fishing. It's kind of the great equalizer. As some have said in the past, doesn't matter. The fish don't care if you're rich or if you're poor or where you come from. It's the great equalizer, and that certainly is the one thing I've learned and really learned to appreciate, during the teaching part. So I love getting out there and doing it. Don't get me wrong, favorite thing to do, but this teaching part is a lot of fun too.
I don't know if it's telling stories out of school, but I understand that you fish pretty much everywhere you go, including Paris.
Absolutely. Paris, New York City. I've got a picture of this beautiful striped bass with the Statue of Liberty in the background. And it's really interesting, these urban fishing environments, Garth. It's certainly something that's gaining a lot of momentum, around the world. A lot of it is as environmental conditions improve in a lot of these European rivers, for example. Like the Seine, for years there was nothing that lived in there because it was so polluted, and now that France and other areas of Europe have started to clean up their act a little bit environmentally, these bodies of water are quite literally coming alive again. They don't recommend that you eat the fish. It's strictly a catch and release fishery, but I met a really nice young French man who does tackle distribution. Like, he basically sells tackle to the stores in Paris and France, and one of his favorite things to do is to teach young kids about the culture of fishing, a culture that's largely been lost in places like Europe. Like, we have more tackle stores per capita in Saskatchewan than they do anywhere in Paris, if you can believe it, right? Because it's a culture that's just not there anymore. So it's kind of almost a worldwide renewal in a lot of ways.
Yeah. All right, folks, we're speaking today with Jason Matity from Matitysgetfishing. And call us with your questions or tips about what works for you. 1-800-716-2221. Email bluesky at cbc.ca. Tweet us at blueskycbc. And we'd love to hear your best fish story and what made it so memorable. Again, 1-800-716-2221. And Vilda is on the line in PA. Hi, Vilda.
Well, good afternoon. This is my favorite topic. I'm a very fishy person. Well, the story goes that my late husband and I were fishing at the end of Heart Lakes. We couldn't get into green too rough. So it was a windy day, and the bay was full of lilies, water lilies. So I'm casting a few times, always getting vegetable salad and hooking them off. And so on one occasion I said to my husband, you got to back up, because we had a real wind drift. And I said, you got to back up. I'm hooked on a water lily. Okay, so I'm reeling her in, but it doesn't come in. It keeps going out. So I think, I got a fish. So we tussled with that fish and the wind drift for about half an hour. But I said to my husband, you know, this fish isn't coming in right. Maybe it's still a weed, but yet it wasn't acting like a weed. So I'm pulling her in, and it gets up to the side, and it's a 20-pound jack. But what happened was, I always use a number 5 MIPS there. So what happened, he took a swipe at the hook, and he got the treble in his hind end near the tail, and I was pulling him in by the hind end. So he got the fish in the boat, and it was a nice fish. But what a tussle to get that fish into the boat and to get him in. So now I still love fishing, but I don't have anyone to go with now, and it's all memories, like my husband. So anyway, that's one of my stories.
Well, thanks for sharing it with us, Vilda.
Thank you. Right, bye.
And Al's on the line in Seward, Nebraska. Hi, Al.
Hi there, how are you?
Pretty well, thanks. You got a fishing story?
Well, I don't, but I've got a lot of stories about that fella you're talking with there, that Jason Matity.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if the producer should let Al through. I'm just kidding, of course. I love you very much, Al. And Al is one of our great sponsors of Matitysgetfishing. So let me have it, Al. What do you got for me?
Well, all I've got is that the largest walleye I ever caught in my life, and I've caught a lot of walleyes, was with Jason and his brother Jeff, and up at Last Mountain, a little bit north of you there in Regina, and it was a 33.5-inch length and a 22.5-inch girth, and it was a number 2 walleye in all of Canada that year. And I think that was 05, wasn't it, Jason?
Yeah, it was either 05 or 08. I'll have to check our archives on that one.
Well, don't check too far, but we got a replica of that fish hanging up there at Rowan's Ravine there with the folks at Last Mountain.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Al.
That was a fish of a lifetime and a wonderful, wonderful fella to catch it with. So thank you all, and have a great show.
Thanks for calling, Al.
You bet. Bye-bye.
That is one big pickerel.
Well, it is, and the other part that Al left out of the story, Al is a lure manufacturer with Real Bait Tackle, realbait.com, and Al, the lure that Al makes caught that fish, Garth, if you can imagine that too. So talk about, like, for Al, a real, blast of excitement, and Al is, as you probably picked up on the radio, he's a guy with some energy, some enthusiasm. I can tell you the giggle and squeal that came out of that young man when that fish came towards the boat and how big it was. He was extremely animated and excited, as one might imagine. And of course, that fish was caught and released, and we can only assume that it's a 35 or 36-inch fish now, if she's been able to avoid other anglers.
Right. Okay, we're going to get in at least one more caller here before we have to take a break for our Olympic update. It's going to be Keith in Outlook. Hi, Keith.
Hi.
Hi, go ahead, Keith.
Hi, I'm just wanting to know the key factors on bottom bouncing in a lake, and then I will hang up.
Okay, thanks, Keith.
Okay, so Keith, what you're talking about is a traditional trolling technique where you use a weight on a wire, and basically the wire is the part that bounces the bottom so you don't get snagged up, and you traditionally troll a spinner or a live bait behind it, or even a crankbait for that matter. Essentially what you want to do is you want to, I'll try to give you some quick tips on this. 1 ounce is what you want to have if you're trolling in 10 feet of water, 2 ounces for 20, and so on. And you want to try to be at least trolling at 1 mile an hour, or about 2.2 kilometers, to make sure that the spinner is running correctly. And I guess the last thing I'll say about spinners is that's actually the topic, spinner and bottom bouncing fishing, that we're going to be talking about next week at our Cabela seminars in Saskatoon, Saturday at 1 and Sunday at 1. This is next weekend. So if you're able to make it up for that, we can give you a lot more info.
So in bottom bouncing, then, your lure is actually sort of, bouncing along the bottom?
Yeah, it's what you do is you have the weight, and then the lure trails out behind the weight and sort of spins and dances behind that. So it's that weight that gets you that critical bottom contact, and that technique, Garth, has caught more big walleyes, particularly in the summertime when the fish go a little deeper. It forces you to have that bottom contact, and because it's mounted where the weight, it's like it's on a wire where the weight is up above the bottom, and there's just a tiny little piece of wire that touches the bottom. So if you're fishing a Tobin, for example, where there's wood snags everywhere, you occasionally get your lure back there, as opposed to using a traditional one where you'll never get it back.
Right. So, and that's primarily for walleye?
Walleyes is typically the best rate of success on that. They seem to, spinners is usually what you troll them behind, but you can pull crankbaits and other lures, and we get a lot of pike doing it as well.
I think you get a lot of pike in Saskatchewan no matter what you do.
You know, that's one of the things. I celebrate northern pike, Garth, because unlike walleyes and other species, they like to give it up. You know, they bite. They give you some action, and every single one you catch, being 2 pounds or 20, it's an event. You know, so a lot of people don't like pike, but I promote them for that reason, because they're just so memorable, every single one you catch.
Well, you know, another name for them is wolf fish.
Oh, yeah, wolffish, jackfish, snake, hammer handle for the smaller ones, if you remember that one too. Yeah.
Well, snake, I think that usually refers specifically to those long, skinny ones you catch in warm southern waters.
Well, yes, that's true. You do tend to get them in very warm water, those little guys, and they're very snake-like. They're very acrobatic fish, without question.
Okay. Jason, we're going to take a quick break here pretty quick for our hourly Olympic update. Our guest today, Jason Matity from Matitysgetfishing. You can call us with your questions or tips about what works for you. 1-800-716-2221. Email bluesky@cbc.ca. Tweet us at blueskycbc. Love to hear your best fish story as well and what made it so memorable. So, for your stories or questions or tips about fishing, give us a call right now, 1-800-716-2221. Email bluesky@cbc.ca or tweet us at blueskycbc. Jason, before our break there, we were talking about names for northern pike, and Nat dropped us a line here by email. He calls them slough sharks.
Yeah, that I can't believe you and I forgot that one. That's a classic.
Slough shark, yep. We've mentioned a couple of times that you have a couple of Learn to Fish weekends coming up. Tell us about those. How do they work?
Well, the Learn to Fish weekend this weekend at Douglas Provincial Park, which is it's a little over an hour, I think, from Saskatoon, about 2 from Regina, is we're going to have it done at the beach areas where it's going to be. And really what it comprises of is there's 2 components. The first hour is we go through the basics. This is a rod, this is a reel, this is the line, weights, lures, and the big one, Garth, regulations. Going through what are the limits, species identification. It's like a school, that first hour. And then the next hour, once you've demonstrated to me that you can cast, it doesn't necessarily have to be well, but that you have awareness of, that you're not going to hook anybody, that you know how the bait goes forward into the water, those types of things, now we can fish. And the last hour is we try to catch something, and if we're successful doing that, we'll even do a little filleting demonstration. So it's within a 2-hour window. The first session goes at 10 o'clock tomorrow at Douglas Provincial Park by the beach, and the second one goes at 1 p.m. also tomorrow. So there's 2 different chances to get out there and give it a try.
The filleting part, that's where I could use a little help. I tend to make a mess of them.
Yeah, and it's a really it's glad you mentioned that, Garth, because it's really critical that people make the most of they can of that process, because there can be a lot of waste, and a quick tip on filleting for you is that a lot of people never sharpen their knife, and as soon as that edge is gone, it becomes difficult. At no point, even through the bones and the back part, should that knife be working terribly hard. And if it is, that means it needs to be sharpened. So that's one tiny tip. And I know my brother, Jeff, who I do Matitysgetfishing.com with, he is the filleter of the 2 of us. He's just better at it than I am, probably because he's more patient, but I'm constantly watching him sharpen his knife and his hooks, which is another important tip too. He's always got the grinder going and making sure that that's tip-top shape.
Okay, again, folks, Jason Matity with Matitysgetfishing in our Regina studios. So give us a call with your fish stories or to get some helpful advice. 1-800-716-2221. Email bluesky@cbc.ca or tweet us at blueskycbc. Tony is on the line in Saskatoon. Hi, Tony.
Hi there. I don't know if I have much technique to offer. I like the bottom bouncing tips that your guest gave. Of course, you want to have it on a swivel. You want to have your trailing hook quite a ways above your bottom bouncer, but I'm sure he'll get into that and everything. But I wanted to mention if you had any ideas about ethics in fishing and how people treat the fish. I don't know if you talked about in this first part of your program, but I see a lot of people when they take the fish out, they want to hold it up by the gill plate and let the fish hang. And from what I've heard, that's pretty hard on their internal organs. And I also see a lot of people who they do catch and release, but they for lake trout anyway, they sit in the really deep holes in the summer, and they're pulling fish up from 150 feet deep, and the fish never survive that. So if it's hot weather in the summer, just leave the lake trout alone. Go get them in the fall when it's cool and they're in the bays and they're in shallow water, and just fish for, pike, what we do in Saskatchewan. That's about all I had to really offer. I don't know if you guys talked about that or any other ethical ways to fish.
Well,
we hadn't, but thank you very much for bringing it up, Tony, because we're going to.
Yeah, no, it's definitely great points, Tony, it's people. The fish handling is definitely something we talk about in our seminars. We've actually done some videos on our Matitysgetfishing.com website on it as well of how to handle those fish, and that sort of vertical hold that people have with one hand on the gill plate. It can be very hard on the fish because a fish was never designed to be held that way, particularly for catch and release. And it's even worse for the bigger fish because there's so much weight there. And you can actually break the bones in their neck if the fish is heavy enough, like really, really big 40, 50-pound lake trout. So it's always recommended that you cradle the fish almost a little bit like a baby, 2 hands on it. Try to keep your hands on the outside of the gill plate. And I guess the big one is fish are exactly the opposite of us in that if somebody holds your head underwater, you can't breathe. Well, when you pull the fish out of water, they can't breathe. So it's really important that, and we all understand it, and we encourage that you get a picture of those big fish and let those bigger ones go to support selective harvest and keeping the populations going out there. But hold that fish in a net. Keep that fish in water until you're ready to go with your picture. Get your camera ready, get your cell phone, whatever it is. Pull that fish out, get 2 or 3 quick picks, and get that fish back in the water and get it recovering really, really quickly. Pike in shallow water, perch along the weed lines when the weeds get really mature in a lot of our southern lakes. Absolutely go after them. They make a great meal, great for the kids. You get lots of bites. And the thing is, those fish are shallow because anytime you get fish deep, they get issues with their swim bladder and they'll die.
Yeah. Just the pressure change alone is enough.
Yeah, absolutely. Their swim bladder, like a balloon inside their body, expands to the point that it'll actually rupture their internal organs. And it can, and while you can often let them go and they appear to swim away okay, quite often they don't recover from that.
Right.
So,
okay, great tips. Glenn is on the line now from Big Sandy Lake Resort. Hi, Glenn.
Hello, how are you doing, sir?
Oh, all right, thanks. Go ahead, sir.
Okay, I'm on a satellite phone, so if it dies on you, I'm not hanging up on you. It could just keep it quick. Anyway,
okay.
I'm an expert at catching northern pike. I did it for many years. I'm retired now. But all I can emphasize for your audience, it's very important not to net a pike over 10 pounds with a dip net, mainly because the pike over 10 pounds are all females.
Oh, really? So
Yes,
why wouldn't you net them?
The males are always small. They're under 10 pounds. The females are over 10 pounds. It's very important to handle them with your hands. The lodges that I worked for up north in NW2 Nunavut territory, you cannot net them. If a guy nets the pike, they are fired immediately. When a pike is netted, it rolls. When it rolls, it loses its slime. That's its immune system. It does not grow back like that. So from my experience, like 2 or 3 days later, you'll go back to the place where you caught the big fish, you'll find it deceased.
What about a
Nothing wrong
cradle,
with it.
Glenn? What about a cradle?
That's what I emphasize. That's all I've used is a cradle. That's all I've used, even for small ones.
But a cradle's okay for the bigger ones?
Yes, absolutely. It's required. If you cannot use your hands, use a cradle. Like myself, I just use my hands. Eh? And you got to hold them horizontally. You can't hold them vertically. Because if you got a pike, let's say 20 pounds and bigger, when you hold them vertically, that could be it right there, because the weight of the fish could sever the spinal cord of the fish. We all know this. All us professional guides know this. You cannot hold a big pike vertically. It's got to be held horizontally. And please emphasize to your audience, please do not use a dip net on big pike, and please release them. We'll have a fishery for future generations. Thank you very much, Garth.
Thank you very much for calling in today.
Yes, very well.
I need you to explain a cradle. What are we talking about here?
Yeah, and basically, okay, we're familiar with the hoop nets, where you scoop them and it's a big round net. The cradle it's like a net, Garth, but what it is it's rectangular in nature, where it's got two sort of handles on the side, and it's got sort of a netting below, and you just pull it apart, guide the fish in, and close it. So because the fish can't twist and turn itself, because it's rectangular in shape, they don't twist up in the net and roll like we've all seen pike do. And what that does is it protects the fish from doing that spin, doing that roll. They're in the water, contained while you're getting your camera and that type of thing ready. And then you pull out the fish, just like Glenn was saying, two-hand grab on that fish and get it back in the water quickly. I had not actually heard that you would get fired for using a net, which it depends on the resort. And I can assure you the reason the fishing is so good at these resorts up north, Garth, is because they catch and release. That's absolutely critical for having trophy fish. So I'm not sure if I did total justice to the explanation of a cradle, but it is definitely a good option to use instead of the net.
Right. All right. Rhonda is on the line in Regina. Hi, Rhonda.
Hi there. I'm not a person who is involved in fishing, and I will preface this also by saying that I do enjoy eating fish, but nevertheless I will express these comments. Something that is a concern to me is when fish are caught to be eaten, that then they are put in the bottom of the boat and then they flop around for a while until they die. And I would like to see some method of killing them immediately so that they don't just, die this death that takes however long for it to occur. With animals, we slaughter, there's an immediate, cessation of life there. And as I say, I kind of almost feel a bit hypocritical bringing up these comments when, I'm fine with personally buying fish or eating fish in a restaurant or so on. But nevertheless, that concern is there.
Well, thank you very much, Rhonda.
Okay.
Jason, my first thought was fish bat.
Well, you know what? If you're going to, the absolute best thing to do is to do that technique, the bat. There is also another one where you that's probably the best, most humane one. So let's stick with that one, where you give them a conk on the head and then they're done. The next thing you need to do once that fish has been subdued is you need to get them on ice. So if you know you're going out for a meal and not catching and releasing, subdue them quick with the fish bat and get them in a cooler. Or better yet, take the fillets off the side, fillet it right there in the boat, and then put those fillets on ice, because that'll keep the meat quality high all the way home, especially if it's like 25, 30 degrees out. Yeah. As the fish slowly dies in the bottom of the boat, that also, their meat quality deteriorates, as they die. The other option that some folks use, although in the summer it doesn't work great when we get later in the summer like this because of the water temperature change. Like if you're fishing for walleyes in 25 feet and you throw them in your live well where there's fresh water going through, the problem is that that water's significantly warmer on the surface than it is down where the fish live. So the live well can be a very good technique more in the spring and the fall when the water's cooler and more the same temperature to keep those fish alive as long as you can before you harvest them, because basically your options are this: subdue them right away, get them on ice, keep the meat fresh, and deal. You don't have to deal with the suffering. And the other side is if you're able to keep them alive longer in the live well, that also helps them. It's dark in there, they sort of settle down, their stress level goes down. So those are the two options. But again, at this time of year, probably subdue them quickly, get them on ice is your best method.
Now, when you fill it in the boat, to stay within regulations, you have to leave a certain amount of, it still has to be identifiable, doesn't it?
Yes, and any time you're filleting fish, period, what you need to do is you need to leave a 1-inch patch of skin on each fillet that you create. And that's so that a conservation officer, if you're checked, can identify your catch and how many there are, because as we know, there's a limit of 4 walleye, 5 pike, that type of thing, and less than that depending upon the body of water. So that's really, really important that people know that if you're filleting your fish on site, like either at the boat launch, at the filleting shack, or within the boat, that you're making sure to leave that skin identification tag on.
Right. All right, folks, we're talking about fishing today. We've got a few minutes left for this conversation, and if you have a question about fishing, we've got the guy who can answer it, Jason Matity from Matitysgetfishing. He's in our studio. So give us a call right now. It's 1-800-716-2221. You can email bluesky@cbc.ca or reach us on Twitter @blueskycbc. What do you enjoy about fishing? How did you get introduced to the sport? You can give us a call again right now. It's 1-800-716-2221 or email bluesky@cbc.ca. We were talking a little bit about your fishing lessons that you do from time to time. Who are you aiming at with the Learn to Fish programs?
Well, the nice thing about the Learn to Fish program is that it's pretty much for all ages. I mean, we recommend that, if kids are probably that's around 8 years old is probably the best age, because they're sort of a little bit bigger, they're a little bit more able to make those casts. And anytime there's kids under 10 or 12, their parents just have to be there, to help them out with the process. But basically from kids all the way to 100 years old, if you want to come out, is totally fine. The biggest ones, Garth, is that you're physically able to be around the water and be on some uneven ground, because this is all shore fishing, of course. So that's a pretty big requirement. If you have some mobility challenges, you probably aren't going to find it enjoyable, which is unfortunate, right? We would recommend, a store setting like our seminars for those folks to be able to educate folks there. But as I say, it's really any age and anybody who wants to come out. And I guess the really cool thing too with the Learn to Fish program tomorrow at Douglas Park is that if you're coming specifically for that, we're going to have like about 15 rods for the first 15 folks that show up. So you don't even have to bring gear. And if you're just participating in the seminar, you don't actually need a license for that 2-hour period either. Like the good folks at SaskParks who are running this program and have asked us to come and help teach, they have gotten an exemption for those folks who want to come out for that 2-hour period. But here's the key. If you come for the 10 o'clock seminar and you want to go fish at 12, you're going to have to go to the park office and get a license, because it's not free fishing weekend or anything. I need to emphasize that you don't get to fish free for the whole day, just that 2-hour period that you would participate in the seminar.
Well, and then if you like it, you can go get a license and off you go.
Exactly, and that's the other thing we really like about it, is that you may find out at the seminar that fishing might not be for you, but I'll tell you, it's on a shoreline on beautiful Lake Diefenbaker, one of our nicest lakes in the southern part of the province, especially later in August. So you can't beat the scenery, that's for sure.
Yeah. Is it still full of trout?
I've got some great friends who catch trout all the time on it. They really know what they're doing. It's not quite as easy as it was back when the quote-unquote escape happened in 2000 when all these trout got into the lake. But there's still plenty of trout there. They perhaps, Garth, become a bit more educated, if you will, over the years, as opposed to the trout that got in there that were absolutely hitting anything that moved, because these were, of course, folks not familiar with the story, but some trout escaped from a fish farm in the early early 2000s, and these fish had been raised on pellets and were hand-fed. So all of a sudden, a lure going by or a little baby fish going by, they were just, I think they were out of their minds with enthusiasm, Garth, to bite anything that they could that didn't look like a pellet. So, but unfortunately, though, those folks, or I shouldn't call them folks, those fish have been kind of called out of the system, shall we speak, for their enthusiasm of hitting a lure. And the smarter ones are still in there, but they're still fish to catch. Yeah, you just got to work a little harder. Now we're matching wits, if you will.
I took scuba diving training, actually, with one of the guys from the fish farm. They decided they'd better learn to dive after that.
Oh, yeah, I bet. What was that experience like for you?
What's that?
The scuba diving.
Oh, it's interesting. We have some Great Lakes in northern Saskatchewan that have some pretty good visibility. Not a lot on the bottom, except, now I'm not sure what it is, but as long as we're talking about fishing, there are little fish that live at the bottom of our northern lakes, and I think it's the males that make a little tunnel. These are little guys. They're only, 4 or 5 inches long. But they make their little burrow at the bottom, and they will guard it against anything.
Cool.
So you've got, you're diving in full gear in Saskatchewan, so you've got gloves on, so it's a pretty, your finger is twice the size of the fish, but he will actually attack your finger to protect his hole.
Wow.
Tough little fish.
Very good. Got to wear gloves, eh?
Pardon me?
Got to wear gloves down there.
Well, it's pretty chilly. You get 20 or 30 feet down in a northern Saskatchewan lake. It's pretty chilly.
I bet.
Yep.
Wetsuits, sure.
At least. Gwendolyn's on the line in Kindersley. Hi, Gwendolyn.
Hello. We're heading up north to go fishing next week, and you made a comment about leaving that 1-inch piece of skin or patch of skin and stuff like that, and something that got me to thinking, what's your recommendation for transporting the fish home when you want to package them, store them? I've seen so many people do it so many different ways. I'm just curious what your thoughts are.
Well, and there are a lot of different ways to do it. I mean, if you want to eat that fish immediately upon getting home, you're best to knock it into 2 fillets and leave that 1-inch patch of skin. The Saskatchewan Angler's Guide, which I strongly encourage you to pick up a copy. You could probably pick it up right there at the regional office. I think you have a biologist right there in Kindersley too. It lists 3 different ways to do it. To do the skin, to do the whole fish dress, or just do 2 fillets and leave the skin on and then pull the skin off at home is the other option. And you can pull the bones and everything out at home. It's key too, Gwendolyn, that you have your fish, a single fish, in 2 pieces. Don't cut it up in more. Just leave the 2 whole fillets, because if you start cutting them up, then a conservation officer, if you do get checked, he won't know how many you have. So that's why they need to be able to 2 fillets, 2 patches of skin is 1 walleye, and so on and so forth. And the other thing I wanted to quickly talk about is that your possession limit, meaning your 4 walleyes you catch, is all you can bring home. You can only bring home 4, because possession is also the daily limit.
All right.
Okay, thank you very much.
Good luck, Gwendolyn. Steve is in Saskatoon. Hi, Steve.
Yes, hi. Just a quick question. I'd like to know, what would you recommend for, what would be a good lake for perch around Saskatoon, but not catch and release, so something that you can catch and take home, and I mean perch only. Thank you.
Well, blackstrap is awfully good. It's a lower limit of 10. Same with, there's a few of the smaller reservoirs. I'm trying to remember their names. I haven't fished them in years, but there's quite a few different smaller places like that. Diefenbaker can also be very, very good for perch as well, some bigger ones. And it's only about an hour from Saskatoon. And it's the nice thing about Diefenbaker, because it's a little bit deeper, the weeds aren't really, really heavy, so you can still make some good shore casts. So that would probably be my best recommendation for August.
Okay, Steve, thanks for your call, and let's see if we can squeeze in a couple more. Ed in Beauval. Hi, Ed.
Hello there. Yes, I have a story or two here from northern Saskatchewan. This was back in the late 1960s. My wife Angie and I and my father-in-law Joe were out fishing for what we call pickerel here, or sometimes they call them walleye. Mm-hmm. We were just a few miles south of Beauval on the Beaver River. We were trolling, and Angie and I were doing quite well. We were pulling in a number of fish. Poor Papa Joe, all he could catch was clams on the bottom. But anyway, Angie and I both had a fish on the line. We stopped the boat and pulled them in, reeled them in, took them off the hook, and we thought, well, gee whiz, we'll just cast out from where we are right now. Now, we were standing on opposite sides of the boat facing each other, and we both drew our rods back to cast the line out, and our hooks behind our backs dangled on the water for just a second or two, and we both caught a bite, just like that. We couldn't believe it.
That's every fisherman's dream come true, Ed.
That's right.
Thanks so much for your call today.
Okay.
Sorry we're out of time, but thanks very much for your call. Jason, we barely scratched the surface, so thanks for your time.
You bet. Thanks a lot, Garth, and thanks, for the time today. And just to emphasize to folks, Douglas Park tomorrow, there's 2 chances, 2 seminars, 10 a.m. and 1 p.m. And if you want more information, check out our Facebook page, Matitysgetfishing.com, or our website or YouTube channel. Any Google search will get us, really.
All right. Good luck this weekend, then.
Thank you very much, and good luck with your diving as well.
Bye-bye, Jason.
Bye-bye.
Jason Matity and his brother run Matitys Get Fishing, which has its own YouTube channel. Go to matitysgetfishing.com. He's also Cabela's pro staff member on their angling team, and tomorrow he's going to hold a Learn to Fish seminar, a couple of them actually, on Lake Diefenbaker. Next weekend he's at Cabela's in Saskatoon, and then in Regina to talk about summer fishing techniques. That's our time together today. I want to thank you all very much for joining us, and I want to take a moment now to thank everybody who worked on the program this weekend. And summer, so with holidays and fill-ins, quite a few people had a part in the program this week. They include Kirk Fraser, Ryan Sanderson, our technicians, Eamon Barre and Samantha Brace, our associate producers, Michelle McCaw, our producer, and Abby Schneider helped us out earlier this week as well. So thank you to everybody who helped on the program. Thank you for listening to the program this week. And please join us again Monday at noon for Blue Sky here on CBC Radio 1. Have a great weekend, folks, and if you go out fishing, good luck. Bye now.